Mid-February, 1864. I slid the door open and met a breath of cool morning air. Clumps of thick clouds trundled silently over the city, an unusual strong wind driving them along. It's cold today. I shivered a bit and grabbed my jacket from the other door to wrap around myself. A week had passed since I'd begun living in the headquarters of the Shinsengumi. I was given a room of my own, but they made it clear that I wasn't to roam freely. They weren't the best accommodations, but given how close I was to being murdered by them instead, I thought it'd be best not to complain. Still, do I really need to dress like this all the time? I sighed, staring at my feet on the cold floor. They'd given me temporary accommodations, but it wasn't without its strict conditions.
お前の身柄は新選組預かりとする。が、女として屯所へ置くわけにはいかねえ。新選組にかくまわれている女がいる。そんな話が万一にも広まれば、よくねえ勘繰りをする奴も出てくる。それに、噂を聞いて高堂さんを狙っている奴らが、お前まで狙い出すかもしれねえ。もちろん、高堂さんが狙われていると確定したわけじゃねえがな。こういう不確定要素が多い現状で迂闊な行動は取れねえってことだ。だからお前には弾倉を続けてもらう。面倒だろうがそれでいいな。
Clear. His reasoning was sound. Perhaps more than that, I knew he was concerned not only for the Shinsengumi, but also for the safety of my father and myself. I didn't have a choice regardless, but keeping this in mind made his orders more palatable.
それに、たとえ君にその気がなくとも、女性の存在は体内の風紀を乱しかねない。ですから私たち幹部のほか、大使たちへも君の事情は話しません。情報はそれこそどこから広まるかわかりませんからね。
I understand the situation. So what should I do while I'm here?
屯所じゃ何もしなくていい。部屋を一つやるから引きこもってろ。
あれ？おかしいな。この子、誰かさんの故障になるんじゃなかったですか？
いいか、掃除。てめえは余計な口出しせずに黙ってろ。
Before long, I'd been there for a week. I guess I don't have much of a choice. No sense in dwelling on what I can't do after all. Although it was still a new sensation, I'd grown comfortable in dressing like a boy, particularly the feeling of wearing pants. I straightened up and touched the kodachi that Hijikata-san had given back to me. This was a familiar friend of mine. The blade by my hip stretching back as far as I can recall. According to my father, this was an important heirloom passed down to the Yukimura clan. As such, I was forced to take lessons in swordplay, making me well aware of what the blade was capable of. I had never cared much for weapons. Weapons hurt people, which is an obvious factor, but it was more than that, at least for me. For as far back as I could remember, any wounds I suffered healed at an incredible rate. Small cuts would disappear overnight. As a child, I thought nothing of it, but as I grew older, I began to realize that I was not quite normal. My father insisted it was a gift of the gods, but that I should tell no one of it. I didn't tell anyone, of course. I was afraid they would treat me like a monster if they knew. Ever since then, I'd done my best not to get hurt. I stayed as far away from blades as I could, and before I realized it, I developed a fear of them. My constant need for disguise was frustrating, but my condition left me more unsettled. Still, that wasn't the only thing on my mind. The rank-and-file soldiers treated me coldly. I'm not just imagining it, right? I learned having a private room was a privilege, even for captains. For a child to arrive and receive better treatment than their own captains. No surprise, really, for the soldiers to hate me. True, I suppose I can't really blame them. I was enjoying the Shinsengumi's hospitality, and so I felt I should help them in some way, but I knew nothing of soldiers and their ways. I gave as much effort as possible, despite Hijikata-san's commands for me to remain in my room. How does one calm the lonely, restless mind? I think for the soldiers, whenever the captains or other officials would look out for me, it appears as if they were giving me special treatment. They're just watching me. To make sure I kept my mouth shut, they took turns keeping watch over me. And a mistake on my part would cause huge trouble, so they were making an effort to keep me contained. Even if I could speak with the soldiers, what conversations would we share? Nothing? My only respite from any possibility of detection would be to stay alone. Again. All I wanted from this, though, was to find my father. Even though they promised to help me, keeping me locked here without the ability to leave was no better than being tied up. Just when I felt like I'd made some progress into my journey, my search was kept to a halt. Perhaps, I thought, I could talk to Kichikata-san if he would give me permission to look for my father. Oh no, that's right. Hijikata-san had recently departed to Osaka. Well, if Hijikata-san's not here, I wasn't sure what to do. We stayed put. To be completely honest, staying in the room was awfully boring. Now, considering your predicament, you need to follow Hijikata-san's orders, Chizuru. I didn't want to cause a disturbance on top of what I'd done. The consequences would be... What am I doing here? A forlorn malaise wafted over me. The room was nice, of course, but also practically empty. I wasn't uncomfortable, I suppose, but not comfortable either, and nothing passed the time. Here I thought I'd gotten used to doing nothing. My father's business required him to take trips frequently, sometimes for days at a time, and so I'd spend a good deal of time home on my own. This isn't quite the same, though. Back then, I always knew he'd be back eventually. Waiting for someone you knew would return, and waiting for what you don't quite know, are two very different things. Well, when will I be able to start looking for father again, I wonder? My reflections all manifested into sighs eventually.
探したぞ、雪村君。ここにいるとは思わなんだ。
Kondo-san smiled brilliantly at me as he stepped into the room, holding a tray in his hands. I'm sorry? I wasn't sure what to make of his words, so instead I silently bowed.
いや、待てよ。もしや、ここが君の部屋なのか?
For now, yes.
なんと、俺は女子の部屋に無断で立ち入ってしまったというわけか?
Oh, no, it's fine. The door was open and everything. After all, it isn't as though there's anything here I wouldn't want you to see.
都市の故障というからには、都市の隣部屋かと思っていたのだが。
Ha! Hijikata-san had, of course, failed to tell Kono-san that I had yet to be made a page. I wasn't surprised. It wasn't too hard to see what was going on. I'm not really prepared to entertain, but you're welcome to come in if you'd like.
そうか。では失礼してお邪魔させてもらおう。だが、そうかしこまらんでくれ。君は我ら新選組の客人のようなものだからな。
Then he placed a tray on the floor between us. This is... I looked down at the tray. I could barely stifle a sudden squeal of excitement.
君は甘いものは好きかね。茶菓子の棚にコンペイトーがあったのでな、持ってきたんだ。
On the plate, he'd arranged several colorful candies and a cup of warm green tea.
どうかね、雪村君。嫌いでなければぜひ食べてみないか。
I forgot I need to buy myself some conpeto. I have a jar over there and it's empty.
さあ、遠慮は無用だぞ。
Thank you very much. I cautiously reached to take one of the candies. It's delicious. Well, the real term should be oishi. It had been a while since I had any sweets. Something about the small colorful candy seemed so adorable that I couldn't help but smile.
そうか、気に入ってくれたみたいで何よりだ。
Kono-san possessed a warm presence. A warming presence that made me feel safe as he watched me eat.
そういえば、まだ外出の許可は出ていないそうだな。
It's true, but it seems better to know my place. Rushing things would only make more trouble. So just as Hichikata-san suggested, I plan on waiting it out just a little more.
なるほど。分かってくれて嬉しい。ああ見えてトシは昔から他人に世話を焼かないでいられない性分だからな。
Hichikata caring? Wow! I had no idea! Kono-san's view of Hichikata-san seemed so at odds with my own personal experience with him. Of course, though Kono-san is intimately familiar with him, I'm sure, so perhaps there's no way of knowing who this man really is. Wow, I had no idea.
確かにな。知らない人からはよくそう言われるよ。おそらくだが、トシはまだ時期じゃないと思ってるのだろう。だから退屈だろうが、もうしばらく我慢してくれ。
I understand. He hadn't done much, to be honest, but Kono-san's visit had cheered me up greatly. Of course, the conditions of staying in my room were left unchanged. However, the creature comforts of spending an afternoon drinking warm tea gave me some life. Time stood still, shadows drifting along my wall. How long am I going to do this? Solitude was proving detrimental to any glimmer of hope. My heart felt heavier with each moment. How lonely the wistful, forlorn mind can become. Oop. I'd been swept up in a frightening world I didn't understand and couldn't possibly control. I can't possibly figure out what's happening to Father if I'm stuck here. Only Hichikata-san could give me permission to leave, and he's gone. All I could do was wait. Laminating things I couldn't change wouldn't improve my situation, and would arguably make it worse. I knew I couldn't trust the men of the Shinsengumi completely. They were, after all, men who could take life in the blink of an eye. It would be just as easy for them to end my life. Well, at least they've all been nice to me. For now. They're nice men deep down, right?
君さ、騙されやすい性格とか言われない？
What are you doing here?
あれ？もしかして気づいてなかったとか？この時間帯は 僕が君の監視役なんだけどな。
Did you hear everything I said? He heard me. He had definitely heard me. I wanted to scream, but before I could open my mouth, Saito-san stepped out from behind a door.
掃除、無駄話はそれくらいにしておけ。
Wait, were you here the whole time too?
つい先ほど来たばかりだが。
Oh, thank goodness. I'm sorry for screaming like that.
気にするな。そもそも今の独り言は聞かれて困るような内容でもないだろう。
True, I didn't say anything, bad, but still. Well, I was just embarrassed to be caught talking to myself. Saito-san watched me fidgeting and mumbling. His eyes pierced right through me.
夕飯の支度が済んだのだが、邪魔をしただろうか。
No, nothing at all.
あんたと掃除の話に一区切りついたら声をかけるつもりだったんだが、放っておくと長引きそうだったからな。話の腰を折らせてもらった。
Saito-san shrugged shortly before we caught the sound of footsteps approaching us noisily. Heisuke shot through the door. The moment he saw us, however, his face fell.
あのさ、飯の時間なんだけど。
すまん、平介。今行く。
ああ、お前も急げって。早くしねえと食うものなくなっちまうからさ。
Sorry, Toto-san. I'll be there as soon as I can. He turned to leave, but he halted in his tracks. He pursed his small lips together before speaking.
なあ、その東堂さんってやめない？みんな平介って呼ぶからそれでいいよ。
Are you sure?
年も近いからその方がしっくりするし、あとそのデスマスもやめようぜ。
Alright, I'll do that then, Heisuke.
そうそう、それでいいや。じゃあ早く行こうぜ。
ようやく来たか。
おめえら遅えんだよ。この俺の腹の高鳴りをどうしてくれんだ。
新八さん、それってただ腹が鳴ってるだけだろ。困るよね、こういう単純な人。
お前らが来るまで食い始めるのを待っててやった俺様の寛大な腹に感謝しやがれ。
新八、それ寛大な心だろ。それじゃいつものように自分の飯は自分で守れよ。
今日も相変わらずせこい夕飯だよな。というわけで隣の晩ご飯突撃だい。弱肉強食の時代俺様がいただくぜ。
ちょっと新八さん、なんで俺のおかずばっか狙うかな。
それは体の大きさだ。大きいやつにはそれなりに食う量が必要なんだよ。
じゃあ育ち盛りの俺はもっともっと食わないとね。
毎回毎回こんなんで済まないな。
Oh, I've gotten used to it.
慣れとは恐ろしいものだな。
Oh, why aren't you taking anything?
うん。あんまりお腹いっぱいに食べるとバカになるしね。
おいおい、バカとは聞き捨て。だがその飯はいただくぜ。
Oh god, not the backwards again.
どうぞどうぞ。僕はお酒をチビチビしてればいいし。
んじゃ俺も酒にするかな。
ただご飯とか気にしないで。お腹いっぱい食べるんだよ。
I know. I can't help but feel a little bad though.
気にしなくてもいいが、自分の飯は自分で守れ。
Always eating alone made the experience of dinner with these men both an exhilarating and a frightening evening for me. It was actually fun.
最初からそうやって笑ってろ。俺らもお前を悪いようにはしないさ。
Harada. His mouth curled up into an honest smile of his own. Had I really looked so down? Perhaps they were all trying to cheer me up. I wasn't quite sure how to feel. I was conflicted over whether or not to feel pity for myself, or to appreciate the moment for what it was. The joy seemed to be winning out, however, and I caught myself smiling as Inoue-san entered the room. Oh my god.
ちょっといいかいみんな。
As usual, his voice was warm, but in his eyes was a level of solemnity I'd never seen before, at least during our brief acquaintance thus far. The warmth of the room slowly evaporated.
大阪にいるトシさんから手紙が届いたんだが、三男さんがタイム中に重傷を負ったらしい。
What?
何があったの？
ああ、二人が訪ねる大阪の呉服屋に老師たちが無理やり押し入ったらしい。駆けつけたトシさんと三男さんがなんとか老師たちを退けたらしいが、その時に切られたそうなんだ。
Is he going to be alright?
相当の深手だと手紙に書いてあるけど、傷は左腕とのことだ。剣を握るのは難しいみたいだが、命に別状はないそうだよ。
Oh, thank goodness. I exhaled as a brief sigh of relief, but the rest of the room was tense, still itching for answers.
数日中には豚書へたどり着くんじゃないかな。それじゃ私はイサミさんと話があるから。
He turned as he spoke, his last words delivered over his shoulder, and he was gone. It was Saito-san who soon broke the awkward silence.
剣が握れないほどの深手か。腕の筋まで立たれているかもしれん。刀は片腕で容易に扱えるものではない。最悪三男さんは二度と真剣を震えない。
Oh. At last, I understood.
片腕で扱えば刀の威力は損なわれる。そしてつばぜり合いになれば確実に負ける。
薬でも何でも使ってもらうしかないですね。三男さんも納得してくれるんじゃないかな。
掃除めったなこと言うもんじゃねえ。幹部が羅刹になってどうするんだよ。
Wait, that didn't make any sense. What are the Furies?
おう、羅刹ってのは薬を飲んだら怪我も治っちまう。
平助
Before I could move, Harada was on his feet and halfway across the room. I barely had time to gasp before he drove his fist into Heisuke.
てえなも
Heisuke, are you alright?
やりすぎだぞ佐野。悪かったな平助。先に口を滑らせたこっちも悪かった。
大丈夫か？悪かったな。
After a moment, Harada curtly nodded to Heisuke in apology, and later offering a quick pained smile. The latter offering a quick pained smile.
いや、今のは俺が悪かったけど、草野さんはすぐ手が出るんだからな。
His punch had enough force to knock out a lesser man, but Heisuke seemed unfazed. It was never clearer now. It was never clearer how different these men were.
今の話は君が聞いちゃいけないことにほんのちょっと首を突っ込んだところだ。これ以上のことは教えられねえんだ。気になるだろうけど 何も聞かないでほしい。それとさっきの平助の話は忘れてくれ。
His voice was friendly, but his eyes gave his words a cold weight that made me feel uncomfortable.
羅刹っていうのはかわいそうな子たちのことだよ。
Okita's voice was flat, emotionless. A sudden chill of melancholy entered his eyes. I couldn't bring myself to say anything more. Thankfully, Nagakura broke the awkward silence.
お前さんは何も気にしなくていいんだって。だからそんな顔するなよ。
I was only a guest in their house, not a warrior of the Shinsengumi. The truth of the Shinsengumi secrets were no business of mine, something I'd known. There was little value in that sentiment, however.
忘れろ。深く踏み込めば、あんたの生き死ににも関わりかねない。
I bit my lip and kept silent. The wall between us was almost tangible, almost far too large an obstacle for me to defeat easily. I finished my dinner in sad silence, excused myself, and returned to my room. I had a great deal to think about. Furious, huh? I wondered to myself if the Furies referred to the Rakshasa pictured in Buddhist texts. Though I wasn't well versed, I recalled reading a text about a man-eating demon god with that name. I have no idea where to start from drinking the medicine to Captain becoming a Fury. No, I wasn't supposed to think about those things. I was only going to get myself in trouble if I stuck my nose where it didn't belong. Hearing or seeing or hearing the word thing. Oh wait. Hearing or seeing or hearing the wrong thing could kill me. If I die, I'll have a hard time looking for my father. Yeah, 'cause you'd be dead. The Shinsengumi captains are keeping themselves hush around me, especially about the Furies. Are they doing it to protect me? Even if I dug around, I'm sure nothing would come of me. With that in mind, I did my best to clear my head of the evening's events. Blah, 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 blah. If you die, it's for a long time. Yeah, it is for a long time, Dan. With that in mind, I did my best to clear my head of the evening's events and slipped into my futon.